Hey everyone, welcome to a Sibling Thing. I'm Afreen.
Hey, I'm Zeeshan. Today we're going to be talking about how Afreen and I think we should be spending some of our free time. Um, so I sort of am approaching this from the perspective of like how I like to spend my time and the conclusions that I've reached. I think there are three major things for me. One is like I like to meditate a lot, and I'll talk about that in just a second. And then reading books and watching TV shows. How much of this should we do? I feel like I found the answers to these questions, some of these questions for myself, but we'll be discussing a little bit. Um, but the first one, meditations. Shall I start talking about that, Afreen?
Yeah, let's jump right into it.
I think that people really people really benefit from thinking about their feelings. I think that as we go through life, our filters sort of catch a bunch of feelings like anxiety, hopes, fears, joy. Sometimes joy is very fleeting, though I find. It comes and then you get used to it and then it's gone sometimes. But in general, I think that humans, being sensitive people, they have like um, an ear out for their own feelings, and so our feelings are sort of a feedback loop, right, of like how we're doing, what we should be doing next. All of that, the starting point is the feeling itself. So I think that people really benefit from spending time thinking about why am I feeling this and what does that mean. And I think that it doesn't happen without people deliberately taking the time to sit down and think about that. And so we get into the territory of meditation. Meditation isn't just about breathing exercises, isn't just about mantras that other people have designed. It's sometimes about your feeling, just thinking about it over and over and over and over again to understand it more clearly, because that then becomes a starting point to how can this be useful for me? What can I do with this information? And so, yeah, I probably take like, 30 to 45 minutes multiple times a week, maybe twice or thrice a week, depending on the week, to sit down and think about, like, okay, why am I feeling this way about my career? Why am I feeling this way about my dreams? Why am I? And that's really helpful. Sometimes I spend like 8 hours pacing around my apartment thinking about my feelings, and those are more of the meditative intensive days. But I do think it's like an important activity to indulge in.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's really important to figure out root causes of your feelings, and that's not an easy process. In the past, several times, what I have done is if I'm feeling really sad or angry or upset, I tend to watch random stuff, Friends, Gilmore Girls, anything really light, uh, to distract me from what I'm feeling in the moment. But that doesn't help the situation really. It's like you build a dam on your feelings, but it has to open. Like as soon as you switch it off, those feelings haven't just disappeared; they come right rushing back. So yeah, you just delayed the process of figuring out the root cause and kind of working with it, because until you address root causes, or at least be honest with yourself, there are times that we are not able to take action to fix certain things because they're outside our control, but at least we have to be honest with ourselves on to why we're feeling a certain way, whether it's sadness, anger, frustration, whatever it might be. So yeah, I completely agree. Like, I know meditation is generally people think of okay, breathing exercises and try to drain your mind of all thought, but it doesn't have to be that way. Sometimes I have found that I just like to sit and see where my thoughts are going, like just observe uh, where my mind is trying to take me, because it's harder to fight your own mind to okay, no, you don't have to think about anything. It's easier to okay, let's see where you take me, like sit down, breathe, think where you're going. It helps you find why you're feeling certain ways, because without this you can be there can be days where you're going about just normally, you're like, okay, yeah, I'm doing fine. But at the end of the day, you're just like, but I'm not happy. There's something missing. There's a lack of joy. What's going on? It's because we didn't take the time to figure out if we if there's something that's bothering us.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times, like, feelings are cyclic, meaning that the same type of feeling keeps returning and people aren't entirely sure why. Um, and those cyclic feelings, I think, are particularly significant because it's feedback that your mind is giving you repeatedly. So there's definitely something about those. So whether it's an emotion of being stressed, where your mind is feeling drained emotionally quite frequently, if it's anxiety about being in a certain social circle or being in a certain job, there's definitely something there that needs attention.
Yeah, I completely agree with the cyclical part, right? You, you could have a week where you're feeling odd, and haven't thought about it really. You have a great weekend, you go out with friends, go have party, but Monday comes again and you're still feeling not so great. Like, even though, because that you never dealt with why you were not feeling so great in the last week, you just distracted yourself. But once the distraction is over, the other feelings come rushing back, right?
Yeah,
So completely agree with that.
I think I can explain this via a metaphor. So, say that you have to travel from your bedroom to your house's door every day. You go out, you come back, and you come back with objects. So, you put the objects down on the floor. It's like, okay, I don't know what this object entirely is, but I'll think about it later. I'll figure it out later. You put down an object, you go in your bedroom, you sleep. Next day, you walk, there's something on your floor. So, at some point, after you've collected a bunch of objects and put them on the floor, you're going to have to figure out what those objects are in order to put them away where they need to be. Because otherwise, you're going to be slow in getting from the bedroom to the door, or you're going to have to do a lot of like tiptoeing, stepping around, things like that. So take the time to clean
Yeah.
the floor sometimes.
Well put. I really like the metaphor.
What else did we want to talk about, Afreen?
So one of the other things we recommend and we try to do, but sometimes fail miserably, is to read. And like, it's a vast thing to say read, right? It could be from the current news to nonfiction books, biographies to fiction, anything really. Um, I think reading should be a very integral part of our lives, something we should do with our free time. I am guilty of failing at this miserably, uh, but I have been trying. More recently, I've been trying to go back. One of the things I don't know if I've told you I'm doing is I just finished rereading the Harry Potter series because I knew that one. Like, once I pick it up, I'm gonna see it through. So that was a good way to get the wheels spinning again and get back into the groove of reading. So yeah,
I have a
I
question for
really.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you feel like you should be reading books more?
So I find reading to be very engaging. Uh, Especially like not that watching is not engaging, but in reading it really kicks up your imagination, according to me. Like, you when you read, okay, a person entered the room, there's a table there, you have to picture it. Those are not just words on a paper. I do picture it. Okay, this is what the room would be like. It's not like a separate thought process. Okay, this is what the room would be like, but you start picturing, okay, this person entered, picked up something off the table, this is what the table would be looking, right? I find like it really engages your imagination a bit. That's why I really love to read. The other thing, I feel like there is so much knowledge hidden in books, and they teach us so much, even fiction. And I have an example of this ready. Even fiction sometimes teaches you such amazing things. So here's the example. It's Dan Brown's Angels and Demons. Um, in this, the two lead protagonists, they are in this situation. They're stuck in a room, and the hero is like, okay, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And this, I'm just gonna read, okay? Um, Remember, she told herself. Remember the solution to this test. Remembrance was the Buddhist philosopher's trick. Rather than asking her mind to search for a solution to a potentially impossible challenge, Victoria asked her mind to simply remember it. The presupposition that one once knew the answer created the mindset that the answer must exist, thus eliminating the crippling conception of hopelessness. Like, this, when I read this, I felt like this is such an amazing thing. We should do this more often instead of feeling the crippling. Oh my god, I don't know if there is a solution. It's just like, okay, I already know this problem. This problem has a solution. I just need to remember it. And this is from, again, like I said, it's a fiction book. But like, this is an amazing trick.
Yeah, I feel like in cases where you're going to figure out the solution, that's a good way of getting there. It's like remember how to figure this out. But I feel like in situations where you don't reach a conclusion, it might create like a lot of anxiety. It's like, oh, I thought I remembered it. So I don't know if it's a perfect thing, but yeah, there's like a lot of
Yeah.
insightful knowledge in that one in those few lines.
So, and like Harry Potter, there's so much out there talking about how much Harry Potter teaches us, from inclusion to bravery to courage. Uh, like, Hermione is one of my favorite all-time characters. I don't think Harry would have gone anywhere without her, and most of us feel this way as well. Yeah, it teaches you to be brave and strong. Yeah, I
And
think reading.
virtue, like Harry Potter was like a very innocent soul, always like looking for like good in the world in terms of like who's good, who's bad. This person's kind of evil. The Weasleys are a nice family. That sort of like wholesome virtue. I think Harry Potter had a lot of. I used to read books a fair amount in school. The Harry Potter series, a bunch of Dan Brown, Sidney Sheldon's, the school classics. I also read the Twilight series, which I liked a lot back then. Um, but after that, after like a while in college, I didn't do a lot of reading, and even after college, I actually like made a conscious decision that I don't need to be reading books. I felt like, why was I thinking about reading books? And it was like for knowledge. But I was really interested in growing as an artist within like, some of the movie making aspects. Like what kind of choices have other screenplay writers made? What kind of choices have other actors made? Lighting choices, set design choices. I was very interested in those things because I wanted to grow within it. But I also honestly believe that I can gather a lot of knowledge from these shows and movies also, because it's sort of like a compilation of a lot of people's insights about life, what they think about people, a subtle look that an actor gives another actor to express how what they think a character in that situation would do. Those choices also say a lot about humanity and other people's perspectives. And yeah, so I felt like I didn't need to be reading books. And now I'm going back into where I'm like trying to read a little bit more. I'm currently reading 1984 by George Orwell, which is a sci-fi futuristic dystopian book, because it was written in 1949 about like a fictitious 1984.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's got a lot of things about government surveilling, not letting people have thoughts. There are cameras everywhere, that kind of thing, and so it's very like ahead of its time. And George Orwell, like feel like has a very very strong insight about people, and he assumes the reader understands. So there's a lot of depth in his book. I've managed to read maybe 15 pages of that book in the last month because I haven't been like I take away time to think about my feelings. I've gotten good at that. I haven't gotten good at pulling myself away from other work to read books as yet. I'm working on it. But also it's very heavy. There's a lot of like I love to unpack things. Like I've watched Stranger Things all 3 seasons thrice, because the first time I get a gist of the story. The second time I'm focusing on something else. The third time I'm focusing on something else. And so it takes me a lot of time to unpack each paragraph of 1984, the story builds very quickly. It's very impressive how intelligent George Orwell thinks I am. So the reason I've been trying to get into reading books now is kind of like what Afreen said. There's a lot of knowledge hidden in books, and with movies and TV shows, the scenes kind of develop, and then the scene is gone. Whereas with a book, you decide the pace of like how you're reading it. With movies and shows, it's about the experience. The background music flows, the scenes flow, there's continuity from shot to shot. And so you can pause and go back and watch it if you miss something. But like going along with the flow, if all of your attention is there, is just way more fun, I feel like. With books, it's like you're reading one writer's perspective, and so the focus is shifting one by one by one by one, because you're reading the description of like one collection of things at a time. There aren't four characters in a very complex in front of a very complex background in a very complex location, and things are happening kind of quickly, which happens in movies and TV shows sometimes, I think. And I think it's very important to like work on focus retention. It's like a skill that I have lacked for a very big period in my life, because I can go from YouTube to Instagram to da 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 da, and I'm constantly like putting in things into my brain, and I'm jumping around, and that's just like more compatible with the kind of brain I have. But sometimes it's like important to focus on other people's perspective to gather lessons from their perspective, and books really help me work on that one particular skill.
Yeah. So, like one of the things I wondered was like you said, you had these days, like in the more recent past, you haven't had like are not reading a lot. I realized I'm not reading a lot, so I reached out to some friends, like some of them who I knew were avid readers in the past, and now I don't know if they read as much, and some who still do read a lot, and like ask them, why do you think we don't read as much now? Is and one of the straightaway responses, yeah, because of Netflix or like all these online platforms that have so much content that you can consume. Like reading is like asks a lot more of you than just plopping yourself in front of the TV and watching. Like what, like you were saying, right? So much can be happening at a point of time in anything you're watching, that it's also really engaging. So it's a lot of information. And it engages your brain completely, and it's easier and requires less energy, I think, than trying to read something. So yeah, I think we can blame Netflix and Prime Videos and YouTube for our lack of reading right now. Another thing that
Blame them?
one person.
Sorry, blame them, but also thank them, because it's like I've watched so many different kinds of TV shows that I wouldn't have watched without streaming platforms, and I've learned so much from each of them, and some more than others for sure. Some have more depth, but all of them are trying to do good work. So I don't like look down on people that don't read a lot of books. But I feel like there are some people out there that believe that it's like if you're not a reader, you're not that intelligent.
No.
I mean,
I
there are
mean,
people like
I know,
that.
yeah, I
Yeah,
know what you're saying. Yes, there are people like that, but I don't think like your intellectual capabilities should be linked to how much you read. Like
yeah, I agree.
yeah, yeah. Like especially we, in the past several episodes, we have talked so much about how much we have encouraged people to, yes, please go out there, watch all this amazing content that people create, explore your taste, step out of your comfort zone, find things that you would never watch and try to watch it and see where it takes you. Like it's again like reading, like great pieces of like certain bits of wisdom is hidden in books. I think wisdom is hidden in TV shows, in movies. Like you talked about virtue, right? When you were talking about Harry and how he talks about good and evil, the example that was jumping to my mind was Frodo, right? Lord of the Rings is all about how Frodo was trusted with the Ring of Power because he was so pure, right? Anyone else would have been like the evil of the ring would have overshadowed the good in them, but Frodo, till the end, there was a struggle towards the end that keeps happening, but he's so good that he makes it to the end. So yeah, I don't agree with the thought process that you must read. I do encourage it. It's really good, but watching TV shows, watching movies is also amazing. It really helps open up our minds. There are great, like, from documentaries to TV series and movies based on true stories to fiction even. I think there's, like, knowledge can be found everywhere. You just have to open your mind and look, right? But yeah, so the blame was just a little joke. Like, we can blame Netflix that we're not reading so much, but it's not bad to be watching Netflix. And I was saying that another thing that my friends were talking about, that watching something can be a group activity. So if you're in a household, you have husband or wife or kids, watching is something you do together, right? Whereas reading is a very solo activity. So that could be one of the reasons that as we grow older, we have families and other people in the household. You tend to watch more because you get to spend time with others rather than read more. One friend did say her husband gets annoyed if she reads too much because she gets so involved. It's like he keeps calling out to her and she's not even listening to it. It's a funny anecdote, but it happens. I've been there. Mom's been annoyed with... I don't know if you remember, Mom's been annoyed with me so many times because I have my head buried in a book.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I guess if you get into reading and you start realizing that this is something that you enjoy, at that point it doesn't take conscious effort and determination to return to the book. At that time the book's got you.
You're hooked.
Something that's been happening in my life is I haven't been watching an increasingly long list of TV shows that I want to watch on streaming platforms because I haven't been able to find the time to watch them with a lot of attention. Like when I watch an episode of something, I want to be doing nothing else. I haven't found 30 to 40 minutes of like stretches of time recently, and so I haven't watched in the last month 3 or 4 shows that I really want to watch. So I think like watching like even video content with attention is a skill of its own. It doesn't come by coincidence.
Hey, I can vouch for this. So this happens when I watch something. I am complete, like reading a book. I'm completely there. Like if you talk, I will get annoyed. Like, why are you talking? My husband is not the same. So we have been watching stuff, and he's sitting next to me, and he gets a text or whatever, and he starts replying, and I'm still watching, and then he looks up, and he's like, "Oh no, rewind! I missed it." And he does it so frequently. I've gotten so annoyed so many times. Like, I'm not watching stuff with you anymore if you continue to do this. But, I still watch. But, oh my God, it's so frustrating. Like, there have been times he has reminded 3 times. The same scene we have watched 3 times. Because, I forgot to pay attention again.
Um, yeah. So you spoke to your friends and they think it's Netflix that's causing people not reading, huh?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think that's there. The group activity aspect of it. Like one friend who I spoke to, her husband is also an avid reader. So both of them continue to read because they like compare and contrast, like, okay, and they give recommendations to each other about, okay, I read this book, this is really great, you should read it, you should check it out, etc. They used to commute to work together, and so they would like listen to audiobooks together. So, and my friend really recommended this, and I want to pass it on. She's like, if there's a really dry non-fiction book, she prefers to listen to it rather than read. I'm not a big like audiobook person. I find it weird to have someone else's voice in my head. Is that a weird thing to say? Like,
No,
it's
no,
like
no.
someone's someone's continuously speaking inside your head. I find it weird.
I can
so
relate to
haven't
that.
read. So I haven't heard a lot of audiobooks. I mostly prefer to read. But she said, like, for dry books, etc., audiobooks is a great way to consume the content still. And yeah, my husband, who's not a big reader, he has heard a bunch of audiobooks. He was in this phase where he was continuously getting books of Audible and listening to them.
Hey, something I'm just now realizing is that we've been encouraging people to do like a lot of like knowledge gathering and art consumption. We haven't said, anything about like going out in nature or like balancing the brain activities with physical
For
activities,
the
anything like that.
physical activity. Yeah, that's a good point. We should talk. I mean, I could talk for hours because suddenly I'm a hiker. And last year I went on 9 hikes. It's been amazing. This year I had the goal of 12, but thanks to the current COVID situation, we haven't gone out and hiked. But so I'll readjust the goal once we feel comfortable enough to step out. But yeah,
Yeah,
you're
Afreen goes
absolutely
on
right.
really long hikes too. They aren't ordinary hikes.
No, no, they're not very long. Maybe I go on short hikes, long hikes. We have done one backpacking trip that's been amazing, where we basically hiked with 40 pounds, 35 to 40 pounds on our backs up to this amazing alpine lake called Kolchak Lake near Seattle here. And so and then stayed 2 nights overnight. So you basically take up food and clothes and tent and sleeping bag and everything, and just stayed there 2 nights. Did a mini hike on the second day, and the third day come back down. It was amazing, gorgeous, gorgeous.
What was the altitude? How much climbing did you have to do?
I don't remember. It was a 9 miles round trip, and the elevation gain was around 2,300 feet.
Hmm. Like I said, not an ordinary hike. At least that one.
Yeah,
At least that one.
yeah, that one was intense. Yeah. Um, but yeah, what other physical activities do you recommend?
I guess like look at nature. if you're if you're stuck in a concrete jungle, a lot of us are. Um, nature is boring. Like when you think about it from the concrete jungle, but when you go out in a place that's like very natural and has a lot of greenery, it has a water body, things like that. I don't know. It does something to the mind. It's like nice sort of profound realizations just come into the mind from somewhere. It's magical, honestly. But like I forget that sometimes. Honestly, like there's no point. It's like what I'm learning is here. What I'm learning is in front of my TV, in front of my laptop, in front of my smartphone. It's like sure, nature's like fresh air. You get less pollution, yada yada yada. But I need to grow as a person, and I forget the the value of like just being inspired by nature sometimes. And yeah, it's wonderful. So do that once in a while, I guess.
But like, if not hiking or going out, physical activity is still important. We should find time, like carve out time in our free time to do some exercise, whether it's go for a run or even these days, because since COVID happened and gyms and everything are closed, my husband and I started following like online YouTube videos to exercise at home. It has been so good. Like there's this website called fitnessblender.com, and they have programs that you can just purchase, and they give you the whole schedule of like, okay, do this exercise today and this tomorrow and this. So they just give you a calendar basically, and it takes out the trouble of, okay, what do I do today. But I know there are lots of like YouTube is filled with exercise
Yeah,
routines.
loads
So
of free
yeah,
exercise videos. And exercise is something that you can like do and figure out what you like, what you need to do by yourself also to some extent. But you definitely have to like it definitely helps to check out like a few other people's like techniques, because it gives you an idea of like the conclusions that they reach. And sometimes these fitness experts, they've spent like a lot more time experimenting with that and thinking about that. um, I do believe it's important to be physically fit. I guess everyone decides for themselves how much they need to focus on physical fitness, but I definitely say that not just in your free time. It's like um, physical fitness is a must. You have a physical body that requires maintenance, and so even if you don't have free time, you gotta get time to exercise once
yeah.
in a while. You
The,
gotta find it.
Right, that's a good point. I said carve out time from your free time. No, you should carve out time specifically for exercise. Like Zishan said, your body, like you have to exist in this, so it's important to keep it healthy. I also generally do see a connection between physical activity and mental well being. It's great when you're active. You like everything just works a lot smoother, I think, not just physically but mentally as well. I feel you do get a better night's sleep, and I myself have noticed that and seen that, and of course so many experts talk about it as well, right? And a good night's sleep is important for the psyche. So
Um, what I would suggest is like make conscious decisions about how you're spending your time. I think that it's very easy to get lost in the scrolling culture where sort of everything seems a little bit interesting and nothing is super interesting to give it more than a little bit of time. And it's very easy to like jump around from one thing to another. I'm not saying that there's necessarily something wrong with like processing various sources of information in a short period of time. I just think that those sources you should choose deliberately, not just what an algorithm puts in front of you. Um, because, you know, this is something that PewDiePie says a lot. He like reads a lot of philosophical works of the Greeks, and he said that happiness cannot be had without self control. If all you're doing, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but if all you're doing is indulging your fleeting emotions, then you'll find that you're not getting a whole lot of joy from anything in particular, and that joy is going away very quickly too. I'm totally paraphrasing, by the way, but definitely make deliberate choices about how you're spending your time. And if you do that, I do believe that you'll find that you're happier overall. It might take effort in the beginning because it's a behavioral change. If you're someone that's scrolling a lot and you're not choosing your sources deliberately often, it is going to require like a very determined behavioral change to make conscious choices about how you're spending your time. But once you've mastered that, it's easy because you'll know that it's a rewarding system. So it's easy to go back to it. But that first step, that first month or a few months that it would take you to bring about that behavioral change, that's difficult, but I would say it's totally worth it.
yeah, I agree. Totally worth it. We should be very, like you said, deliberate and figure out what it is that engages you, energizes you day to day, brings you joy, and more importantly, peace in the long run. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in.